Cemeteries are supposed to be places of peace, but some are different. Tonight, we'll explore 3 of the world's most unsettling burial grounds, places where history and horror bleed together. Hello, and welcome to Forgotten Destinations. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It truly helps this channel grow. And tell me in the comments, what forgotten or eerie places should we uncover next? Alright, let's get into it. La Recoleta Cemetery, Buenos Aires, Argentina. La Recoleta is one of the most famous cemeteries in the world, but it's also one of the most unsettling. Located in the heart of Buenos Aires, Argentina, it opened in 1822 and quickly became the final resting place for the city's wealthiest families. When you walk through the gates, it doesn't feel like a cemetery at all. It feels like a city of the dead. There are streets and alleys lined with elaborate mausoleums, towering statues of angels, and marble crypts that look like small chapels. And as you walk deeper, you notice something strange. There is no sound, no birds, no wind, just the weight of silence pressing against your chest. Among the thousands buried here, one story is whispered more than any other. The story of a girl named Rufina Cambaceres. She was just 19, rich, admired, alive. One evening, she collapsed without warning, and the doctors declared her dead. Her family arranged for her burial at once, sealing her in an ornate mausoleum among the elite of Buenos Aires. But a few days later, something happened that still chills visitors today. Guards reported hearing sounds from within her tomb. When the coffin was opened, what they found has never been forgotten. Rufina's body wasn't at rest. Her fingernails were broken. Her hands were bloodied. The inside of the coffin lid was torn with deep scratch marks. Her face was twisted in terror. She had been buried alive. Ever since, people claim she never left. Tourists report seeing a pale figure drifting between the crypts, a young woman in a flowing white dress. She doesn't walk like the living. She glides, silent, until you look directly at her. Then she vanishes. Others have described faint scratching sounds, echoing from behind sealed tombs. Some have even said they heard muffled cries in the distance, as if someone were still clawing for air. And there is something more disturbing. Many of the mausoleums in Recoleta are broken and decaying. You can see directly inside, and sometimes the coffins aren't sealed. They're cracked, splintered, with bones and skulls in plain view. The unsettling part, some of those coffins also bear marks, scratches, long and deep, running across the inside. Locals will tell you not to linger here after sunset. The gates close, the paths fall into shadow, and the silence grows unbearable. It's as if the city of the dead awakens, and those who were buried before their time are still trying to find a way out. St. Louis Cemetery, number 1, New Orleans, USA. New Orleans is a city famous for its ghosts, its voodoo legends, and its uneasy relationship with the dead. And nowhere is that more visible than in St. Louis Cemetery number 1, the oldest surviving graveyard in the city. Because New Orleans sits below sea level, the dead can't be buried underground. The soil is too wet. Graves would flood. So, in 1789, the city began building above-ground tombs. White stone crypts, stacked like miniature houses, stretching into narrow, claustrophobic alleys. Walking through them doesn't feel like walking through a cemetery. It feels like walking through a city, but one where every single resident is dead. The most famous grave belongs to Marie Laveau, the Voodoo Queen of New Orleans. In life, People feared and respected her. She healed some, cursed others, and built a reputation that still lingers today. When she died in 1881, she was buried here, and her presence never left. Visitors leave offerings at her tomb: beads, coins, scraps of paper with desperate wishes scrawled on them. Some claim their prayers were answered. Others whisper that they felt watched, as though someone stood behind them, close enough to touch, though no one was there. Tour guides talk about cold spots that appear out of nowhere, sudden chills running down their backs, even on sweltering Louisiana days. More than one has sworn they saw a woman in a colorful headscarf step from behind a tomb, only to vanish when they blinked. But Marie is not the only restless soul here. Thousands are buried within these cramped walls. The vaults are reused, opened over and over across generations, bones pushed to the back to make room for the next body. The dead are not separate here. They are piled together, and people say you can feel it. Some nights, caretakers have reported scratching sounds from sealed tombs. Others describe muffled voices, not loud enough to understand, but clear enough to know someone is there. One worker swore he heard pounding from inside a crypt, as if someone was trapped, trying to get out. He quit the next day and never returned. Because of trespassers and vandals, the cemetery is locked at night. But those who have broken in tell chillingly similar stories. The sound of footsteps following them down the narrow paths, doors slamming shut when no wind was blowing, shadows that stretched the wrong way under the moonlight. Many of them didn't last more than a few minutes before running. St. Louis Cemetery. Number 1 is small, but when you're inside it feels endless. The walls close in, the air grows heavy, and every sound seems too close. In New Orleans, the dead are never far from the living. But here, you can't escape the feeling that the dead are aware of you, and that some of them are reaching back. Highgate Cemetery, London, UK. On the edge of North London stands Highgate Cemetery, a place that looks more like a ruined cathedral than a graveyard. Opened in 1839, it was once the grand resting place of London's elite. But over time, it fell into decay. Now the paths are strangled by trees, the tombs are cracked and sinking, and statues of angels stand eroded and eyeless, leaning forward as if to watch anyone who dares to enter. In daylight, it's unsettling. At night, it's unbearable. Highgate became infamous in the 1970s when stories began to spread of a figure seen among the graves. Witnesses described it as tall, dressed in black, with glowing red eyes. Some swore it drifted through the air. Others claimed it disappeared the moment you looked at it. The newspapers called it the Highgate Vampire, and hysteria swept across the city. Crowds gathered at the gates after dark. Some broke inside, carrying crucifixes and makeshift stakes. They wandered the overgrown paths by candlelight, convinced they were hunting something that should not exist. In the chaos, graves were desecrated, coffins ripped open. Police had to intervene, not to protect the living, but to protect the dead. The vampire was never proven, but the fear has never left Highgate. Even now, visitors report the same strange things: shadows moving against the direction of the light, sudden drops of temperature so sharp they steal your breath, the unmistakable sound of footsteps crunching behind you, even when you know the path is empty. One of the most unnerving areas in cemetery is the Circle of Lebanon, a ring of tombs carved into the hillside around an ancient cedar tree. People describe feeling watched there, like dozens of eyes are tracking them from the crypts. One woman reported walking the circle alone when her chest tightened, as if invisible hands were pressing down on her. She turned and saw a tall, dark figure standing at the far end of the path. It didn't move. When she blinked, it was gone. Photographs taken inside often show more than expected. Pale, misty shapes standing between the graves, shadows where there should be none. Even tour guides who dismiss the vampire story admit that certain corners of Highgate feel wrong. The silence grows too thick, the shadows too long, and you can't shake the sense that something is behind you. Highgate isn't just another old cemetery. It's a place where death doesn't feel distant. It feels active. And when you leave, you don't forget the feeling that something out there let you go. Those were 3 of the world's most unsettling cemeteries. Each one carries its own story, its own shadows, and its own reminders that the dead don't always rest. If you want to hear more places like these, make sure you subscribe, because there are still so many left to explore. And until then, be careful where you walk after dark. Thanks for watching Forgotten Destinations. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay curious, stay safe.